Hello, my Built for 1000 Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully, everyone's having a great day. If not, I hope it gets better from here. We are back with another That Chapter. This one is, first of all, this was actually suggested to me by a subscriber. You all know how much I like the Dyatlov Pass and all that kind of stuff. I didn't know That Chapter had done a video on the Dyatlov Pass, and I'm excited. This was actually suggested to me by a subscriber, so that's even better. Alright, I'm excited to get in today's video. Hopefully you guys are excited as I am. If you are, please go ahead, turn them lights down low, put on something comfy, cut up with something special. Let's get intrigued. Oh, we are back with another That Chapter. This one is titled, What Happened at Dyatlov Pass. Let's go ahead and get into today's story. Yep. Thank you. Thank y'all. I swear, I know what I'm doing. I promise.
In 1959, 9 ski members of a ski hiking expedition went missing in the northern Ural mountains of the Soviet Union. The experienced trekking group established a base camp on the slopes of what the locals called Dead Mountain. Off to a great start here. 3 weeks later, their bodies were discovered not far from the campsite. And the investigation revealed that some of them had been killed by what was described as an unknown, compelling force. Sika bliat, am I right? But what?
Now see, what would that even mean? An unknown, compelling force? Does that just mean, okay, basically, they're dead. Something did happen. We don't know what happened. We don't know how it happened. We don't know, like, what actually caused everything. So, does it mean just that, like, something big, something massive, something major did happen? We just don't know what the fuck that is. We're going to kind of act like we do. Everything's going to be shady as shit because we probably do know what actually happened. We just don't want to tell nobody because it's a hush-hush secret thing. Which, you know, secret time. We're waiting on secret time. You know what I mean? What is an unknown compelling force? Like, that leaves things open to so much shit. That could be the abominable snowman, Bigfootin', Yeti, aliens, nuclear shit. Like, this thing has a little bit of everything in it. It could just been the sheer fact that they all got hypothermia and started, like, ever so tenderly losing their minds. But there's so much other shit that's going on. It's like, what the fuck? You throw in the radiation, the fucking claw marks, which, you know, there's wild animals and shit. No, I understand that, but it's weird. This is during a blizzard and everything else. Now, don't get me wrong. I know when they got around to getting some of the bodies, it was starting to thaw out. Animals are coming back out. That's probably where the eyeballs and stuff went. Like, maybe those was like some of the first things to defrost and the animals ate. I don't know. Or maybe they're just the easiest thing to eat, well, that is frozen on a person's body. I'm not too for sure. But the sheer fact that, you know, some of them are bucking naked, missing a shit ton of clothes. Yeah, that could be hypothermia. Like, you start to think that you're warm when you're not. You'll feel like your body's on fire. It's like the same principle of something being so cold it burns you. I get that. I understand that. But the tents being ripped, all the shit. I've never been in an avalanche. I don't know if, like, when an avalanche happens and things can tear into the tent, which I'm sure there's sharp pieces of ice. I mean, we've all stepped on, like, packed snow, and it can be sharp. It can cut. I understand that. But my thing is, all that damage would have happened after they would have left the tent. You know what I mean? Like, if you hear an avalanche, you're going to try to run for the tree line where it's safer. not in your tent, because that's just going to get crushed. I don't. There's just so many things that don't add up in the Dyatlov Pass. It's like one of the biggest just rabbit holes in my brain. It lives rent free.
It really happened on the night of February the 1st on the Dyatlov Pass. In January 1959, a team of 10 experienced ski hikers, 8 men and 2 women from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, embarked on a journey to reach the peak of Otterton, a mountain in the northern Urals. They were led by 23-year-old ski hiker Igor Alexeyevich Dyatlov. They began their journey when they arrived at a town at the center of the northern province of Sverdlovsk Oblast in the early morning hours of the 25th of January 1959. They then set out from there. 3 days later, one of the hikers, Ural, was forced to turn back due to knee and joint pain that made him unable to continue the hike. The remaining group of 9 people continued the trek. And so Ural was the only surviving member of the expedition. As they pushed through the hostile cold climate towards the base of the mountain, they were hit with snowstorms that ripped through the narrow pass, and the temperature dropped to minus 30 degrees Celsius. Decreasing visibility caused the team to lose their sense of direction. And rather than moving towards Otterton, they accidentally deviated their course west and found themselves on the slope near the top of a nearby mountain on February the 1st. In order to not lose the altitude they had gained, or because the team wanted to practice camping on a mountain slope before their ascent of Otterton, Dyatlov called for camp to be made there.
Why would you want to set up camp on a place where there's going to be an avalanche? Like, my thing is, this is what they went to. This was their schooling. Like, they learned this shit. They knew things. They knew what to look for. Why would you ignore everything you was taught and do something that dangerous, that risky, when there's a tree line not too far from you? I just don't understand the logic in, let's stay here on this slope during this horrendous storm that could potentially cause an avalanche or anything like that, instead of being like, hey, let's go to the tree line where it's safer. We're going to be away from the winds, and we're not going to get hit as hard. Let's go down there. At least there's going to be wood and stuff so we can start fires. More likely to find things to survive on in the wooded area than on the side of a fucking mountain.
And it was on this lonely, isolated mountainside that all 9 hikers would be found dead 3 weeks later. Before leaving, Dyatlov had agreed he would send a telegram to their sports club as soon as the group returned. It was expected that this would happen no later than the 12th of February, but Dyatlov had told Yudin before his departure from the group that he expected to be longer. When the 12th passed and no messages had been received, there was no immediate reaction, as delays of a few days were common with such expeditions.
Yeah.
It was not until the relatives of the travelers demanded a rescue operation on the 20th of February that the head of the institute sent the first rescue groups, consisting of volunteer students and teachers. Later, the army and police forces became involved, with planes and helicopters being ordered to join the rescue operation. When the search party finally arrived at the camp, they were completely baffled by what they saw. Mikhail Sharavin, the student who found the tent, said, The tent was half torn down and covered with snow. It was empty, and all the group's belongings and shoes had been left behind. They noted that the tents appeared to be cut apart from the inside, and found footprints from 8 or 9 people leaving the tents and heading off downslope in the direction of the tree line, about a mile away. According to investigators, the group's shoes and cold weather gear were left behind, and the footprints suggested some people were barefoot or wearing nothing.
So, we got tears, rips, cuts, big sections just fucking gone. Like this could have been from the avalanche. That looks pretty like tattering-y, you know what I mean? But this here's a straight fucking line, like someone went to get out. Like this here is like the front of it. Hold on, give me 1 second. Like this here is the front. Your bed's usually going to be back in here. I don't know if these tents have like the front and back entrance or not, or if it's just a front or if it's side entrance. Not too for sure. But if you're back here and say you have a stove jack and you have, doing it hot tent style, you're still going to be back in the back where more of the heat's going to stay. You're not going to stay up by the door where all the cold air is going in and out, in and out, in and out. So, I mean, it's not out of the realm possibility something happened where this collapsed and they had to cut themselves out because, say, your stove is probably going to be towards the middle, up towards the front, like anywhere from the front door to about here, because you ain't going to want it too close to your actual sleeping quarters. You're going to want enough room to be able to get in and move around and all that shit. So, say this part here collapsed near that fire jack and the stove, you're going to be a little scared because fires can happen. You're just going to cut out the back and go out that way. So that's logical to me. But if you have that kind of time to where you can get your faculties, get your knife, cut a hole, get out, why not grab shoes, coat, blanket, a few things to help you survive? You know what I mean? We're in for a treat today, boys and girls.
But socks. The tent also contained 3 axes and 2 Finnish knives for basic camping practices such as woodcutting. Even with items that could be used as weapons, the hikers still fled in a terrified panic. Strangely, one hiker, Semyon Zolotaryov, fled the tent without any clothing or gear, but took his camera. This is the last photo taken with his camera, which shows, let's be honest, not much to guide us as to what happened.
Not at all. Like, what is even this? What is this? What's the bright lights? Like, this here could be snow, I'm guessing. Maybe. Okay, this could be like mountain. Or maybe even collapsed tent. Dark sky, moon, but what is this? Like, here, I'll even ghost myself. Hold on. Boop. Like, what on here can even give us an idea of what we're looking for? Like, we see kind of something coming this way, a little bit of line, something coming this way, a little bit of lineage down here, kind of a sharp angle there. That could be the moon. But once again, what would that be? Ooh, boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy.
That night. They all cut their way out of a tent and ran through waist-high snow in a terrified panic, for apparently no reason that the investigators
whatsoever
could discern.
Couldn't have been a Bigfoot.
There was no evidence of other people or foul play within the group. The first two bodies were found at the tree line, under a giant pine tree. The two bodies found were both wearing only their underwear, and both were barefoot.
That's just weird.
Branches were broken high up the pine tree, which suggested someone had tried to climb it.
Like they was trying to get away from something.
The remains of a fire also lay nearby. Between the pine and the...
Am I wrong? Like they was trying to get away from something, or they was trying to climb the tree to get like a higher view of where they're at? If you're at the top of the mountain and you're running down the hill, you've done had the highest view. Like you're running down the hill, down the mountain to get to safety. To me, it seems like something was after them. I'm sorry, like it does. Oh, we just left our high point. We ran to a low point, and I'm going to climb back up to see where we're at. Yes, that makes sense. But it also makes sense, something's fucking chasing me. I'm going to get down there to that tree. I'm going to climb up that motherfucking tree so it can't get me. By the time you get there, your hands and feet are so numb, you can't really do it. You get as far as you can, then say you fall. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but whenever like my hands and feet get to a certain temperature, they ain't worth the shit. Like you can't like grasp things right. It's weird, but you can't. I don't know, man.
Camp, the searchers found 3 more corpses. Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin, who seemed to have died in poses, suggesting that they were attempting to return to the tent. One of them, Slobodin, had a fractured skull, although doctors described it as non-fatal, and the criminal investigation was closed after doctors ruled that all 5 bodies found had perished from hypothermia. Searching for the remaining 4 travelers took more than 2 months. They were finally found on the 4th of May under 4 meters of snow in a ravine 75 meters further into the woods from the pine tree. These 4 were better dressed than the others, and there were signs that those who had died first had apparently given their clothes to the others, perhaps in a last noble act. All 4 suffered traumatic deaths, despite there being no outward appearance of trauma on their bodies. One, Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, also had a fractured skull. Alexander Zolotaryov was found with crushed ribs. Ludmila Dubinina also had broken ribs and was also missing her tongue, eyes, part of the lips, as well as facial tissue and a fragment of the skull bone. It was claimed that Dubinina was found lying face down in a small stream that ran under the snow, and that her external injuries were in line with putrefaction in a wet environment, and were unlikely to be related to her death. The clothes found on the final group were tested and found to be radioactive. According to the medical examiner, the force required to cause such damage would have been extremely high, comparing it to the force of a car crash. Notably, the bodies, apart from Dubinina, had no external wounds relating to bone fractures, as if they had been subjected to a very, very high level of pressure, so that their insides would break and crumble, but their outsides would look just fine. Some at the time posited that the group had been attacked by nearby Mansi tribesmen. Coroners at the time stated that the trauma found required more force than humans could inflict.
Yeti.
Especially considering there wasn't accompanying outward trauma. Also, only the hikers' footprints were visible, and they showed no sign of hand-to-hand struggle. It was eventually concluded that they all died of hypothermia, despite the traumatic injuries they had sustained. One man who attended the funerals recalled that their skin had a deep brown tan. Another group of hikers, who were about 31 miles to the south the night of the incident, reported that they saw strange orange spheres in the sky to the north that night.
Which could have been what the dude was taking pictures of, the bright light next to the moon. I'm telling you, that looked like a moon. It was really round. But I could not figure out what that bright light was to it, man. Maybe they was doing some testing out there, bruh.
The inquest officially ceased in May 1959 due to the absence of a guilty party. So, what really happened that night at the Dyatlov Pass? What could have happened on that barren and desolate mountainside
We will never know.
that would have driven 9 people from their tents into over minus 30 degrees Celsius conditions at night, wearing practically nothing, many without even shoes? What scared them so much that they didn't even open their tent? They cut their way out of it, then running to a tree line a mile away and trying to climb a tree. What force impacted them that crushed their ribs and fractured their skulls, yet left no outward apparent injury? Let's get into it. One theory is that an avalanche caused the hikers' deaths. This was the first popular theory, but it has since been widely thought of as not plausible. One American author, Benjamin Radford, proposed that what happened that night was this. The group woke up in a panic and cut their way out of the tent, either because an avalanche had covered the entrance to their tent, or because they were scared that an avalanche was imminent. They were poorly clothed because they had...
I know avalanches are like dangerous and they kill and everything, but that is gorgeous though. I mean, watch that shit. It's so cloudy and poofy.
Been sleeping and ran to the safety of the nearby woods.
And it started off so smooth at the top. You seen it was just like, and then it started like just going fucking batshit crazy, man. That's so cool.
Where trees would help slow the oncoming snow.
That's cool as shit.
In the darkness of the night, they got separated into 2 or 3 groups.
Oh, these motherfuckers like...
One group made a fire, while the others tried to return to the tent to recover their clothing, since the danger had apparently passed. But it was too cold, and they all froze to death before they could locate their tent in the darkness. At some point, some of the clothes may have been recovered
I stopped paying attention. I was watching the avalanche. I don't know what the fuck he said. I'm sorry.
or swapped from the dead. But at any rate, the group of 4, whose bodies were most severely damaged, were caught in an avalanche and buried under 4 meters of snow. However, there were no signs of an avalanche or anything that would present itself as an avalanche that night. The location of the incident did not have any obvious signs of an avalanche having taken place. An avalanche would have left certain patterns and debris distributed over a wide area. The bodies found were covered with a very shallow layer of snow, and had there been an avalanche of sufficient strength to sweep away the second party,
There goes.
these bodies would have been swept away as well. This would have caused more serious and different injuries in the process, and would have damaged the tree line. Over 100 expeditions to the region have been held since the incident, and none of them ever reported conditions that might create an avalanche. And also, Dyatlov was an experienced skier and wouldn't have been likely to camp anywhere in the path of a potential avalanche. Another hypothesis theorized is infrasound. The wind going around the mountain could have created a Kármán vortex street, which can produce infrasound, capable of inducing panic attacks in humans. According to this theory, the infrasound generated by the wind as it passed over the top of the mountain was responsible for causing physical discomfort and mental distress in the hikers. And because of this panic, the hikers were driven to leave the tent by whatever means necessary and fled down the slope. By the time they were further down the hill, they would have been out of the infrasound's path and would have regained their composure, but in the darkness would have been unable to return to the shelter. The traumatic injuries suffered by 3 of the victims were the result of their stumbling over the ledge of a ravine in the darkness and landing on the rocks at the bottom. The campsite also fell within the path of a Soviet parachute mine exercise. This theory alleges that the hikers, woken by loud explosions, fled the tent in a shoeless, shell-shocked panic and found themselves unable to return for supply retrieval. There are records of parachute mines being tested by the Soviet military in the area around the time the hikers were there. Parachute mines, they detonate while they're still in the air, rather than when they hit the ground, and produce signature injuries similar to those experienced by the hikers, heavy internal damage with comparably less external trauma. The theory also coincides with reported sightings of glowing orange orbs floating or falling in the sky within the nearby vicinity of Dyatlov Pass. After all, the Soviet Union, it was in the middle of a Cold War and was also competing in the space race at this time. The deaths as a result of a military testing exercise, that could also possibly explain why there was radioactivity found on some of the clothing that could be a byproduct of the military exercise. The initial suppression of files regarding the group's disappearance by Soviet authorities is sometimes mentioned as evidence of a cover-up, possibly as the government knew exactly what happened there that night. But the concealment of information regarding domestic incidents, that was standard procedure in the USSR at the time. By the late 1980s, all Dyatlov files had been released in some manner. Interestingly though, the deputy head of the investigative department of the Sverdlovsk Oblast Prosecution Office, he was still alive in 2015, and had given an interview to a former prosecutor, in which he stated he was arranging another trip to Dyatlov Pass to fully investigate, more than 50 years later, what happened that night. However, the Deputy Prosecutor General arrived from Moscow before he could leave and ordered the case shut down. So, what do I think happened? A likely mix of the above. Perhaps the infrasound or wind led them to believe that possibly an avalanche was imminent, or at least maybe the less experienced members started to believe that, and so in a panic they cut their way out of the tent, or perhaps something inside the tent happened. Maybe something caught on fire, so they had to cut their way out of the tent, or the military exercise, maybe they heard an explosion, and in the pitch black, confused, terrified panic, they just cut their way out. Maybe a combination of all three. They ran to the tree line to seek shelter. When they were down there, they saw that.
I love you, Mike. I get where you're coming from, but I've gone camping. If there's not anything blocking you from going out that door, you're going out that door. Because whenever everything's done, said and over with, you have got to have a place to go back to that's warm, safe from the elements to an extent. Something had to be at that door, keeping them from going out of it. Just saying. That is about the only way you're not going to just go out your fucking door. Especially on those ones where you can just open it up and go.
Nothing was actually really happening, and they perished down there as it was just so cold. Let me know what you think, what really happened that night on the Dyatlov Pass.
A bunch of crazy ass shit. Mike. Bunch of crazy ass shit, Mike. That's what I think. I think the government had something to do with it, and we will never fully actually know jack shit. I don't. I don't think we ever will. I think no matter what, the government is going to do what it can to keep people from completely figuring out what could have happened. Not saying that, something actually legitimately happened. I don't know. I was not there. But I do know people who camp. I camp. You, I didn't go to school. I wasn't wilderness trained. I was in Cub Scouts whenever I was little. That's about it. I wouldn't do anything to destroy my tent. That's my safe haven. You know what I mean? Something had to have them convinced that they could not make it out that door for whatever the reason may have been. But they had to feel like they could not go out that door in order in any way, shape, or form. That's the only way you're going to destroy something that is your saving grace out in the woods, and especially in weather like that. You're going to want a place where you can go to and at least try to keep warm. So something had to be blocking that front door, whether it caught on fire or whatever the case may be. Something had to. I love this. Thank you so much for the suggestion. Oh my God. I really enjoyed today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video as much as I did. If you did, please go down there, leave a thumbs up. It really does help the channel grow. While you're down there, if you want to go on over, slap that subscribe button, become part of the B5 Nation. We do some crazy stuff here. If you want to know when that crazy stuff happens, ding that bell and turn on all notifications. As always, be good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Damn, that was good. It was so good.